Peace to the 12. Y'all see the title? The Real Egyptians. Y'all see them on the screen, man. Alright, I thought it was about time I did this video, okay? And we're going to go over historical documents, historians, poets, different type of people that already gave you the description of the Egyptians from back in the days, okay? And I'm even going to touch on why they even try to act like the Egyptians aren't who they are, okay? And it's because of a whole nother people that aren't even Egyptian, but they trying to hide that person's identity. And with that, let's get straight to it. Firstly, I want to give credit to this dude, Kuel Micah. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but you know, a lot of the books I got from his channel, and then I went and got the books themselves. So what I'm gonna do, man, you know what I'm gonna do for him? I'm not gonna put a link to the books that you can get. You can go on his channel, so you can give him some more views, and so you can get the links from his channel. But anyway, let's get straight to it. Okay, when you go to Google, you type in "Were the Egyptians black?" Now this is 1993. It says the claim that all Egyptians or even all the pharaohs were black is not valid. Most scholars believe that the Egyptians in antiquity looked pretty much as they look today, with graduation of darker shades toward the Sudan. Now, a couple years ago, I looked up this same thing. You know what it told me? It told me no, the Egyptians weren't black. Now, he says that most scholars believe that they look how they look today. No, sir. Okay, because people would disagree with you guys, man. Because up until recently, and by recently I mean the 19th century, you will find out that the general consensus of all historians was that the ancient Egyptians were so-called black. Okay? Now this guy, Jean-François Champollion, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, but they call him the founding father of Egyptology, right? Well, he wrote a book. You see this book right here. It's in French. I cannot speak French, but this is the book. Okay? Now, look at this. This is what he wrote in his inquiry. Okay? When was he around? He was around in the year 1790. Okay? So it reads, the first tribes that inhabited Egypt, that is the Nile Valley between the Syene Cataract and the sea from the Abyssinia to Sinai. The ancient Egyptians belonged to a race quite similar to the Kenos or barbarous present inhabitants of Nubia. In the Copts of Egypt, we do not find any of the characteristic features of the ancient Egyptian population. Now the Copts, it says the Copts, right? These are the Copts. And he says we do not find the characteristic features of the ancient Egyptians. Meaning what? These guys do not match what the ancient Egyptians looked like. Of course they don't. But we're going to get into that in a minute. But he also compared them to the inhabitants of Nubia. Yes, these are the Nubians. These are the Nubians. So he's saying this is what they look like. Now let's go down to here. The Copts are the result of crossbreeding with all the nations that have successfully dominated Egypt. It is wrong to seek in them principal features of the old race. So he's straight up calling these people mixed. Okay, which they are mixed. You know, this ain't really the video for it, but I'm going to do a whole separate video on the so-called Arabs. Okay? And by the way, the word Arab comes from the word Arab, which literally means mixed. Okay, because in the Bible, we know that the Arabs are known as Ishmael. So the term Arab means mixed, right? Now let's go to another guy. This is Constantine Francois Chassabeau. Okay, he was also born in the 1700s in France. All right, so these French dudes are dropping dimes, right? This is another book. It's written in French. I cannot pronounce it. But I think it says Voyage up in Egypt and in Syria. I'm pretty sure that's what it says. But check this out. I was tempted to attribute into the climate, but when I visited the Sphinx, okay, the Sphinx, its appearance gave me the key to the riddle on seeing that head, typically Negro in all its features. See that? So he says the head of the Sphinx is Negro in all its features. Now you understand why they knocked the nose off. Now you understand why they knocked the noses off. All right, why do so many Egyptian statues have broken noses? And whatever reason they say, listen, they take off the nose because, you know, if you know, you know. We got a certain type of nose. It sticks out, man. But the Sphinx, its appearance gave me the key to the riddle on seeing that head, typically Negro in all its features. I remembered the remarkable passage where Herodotus says, and I will be quoting Herodotus here in a minute, later on. As for me, I judge the Colloquians to be a colony of Egyptians because, like them, they are black with woolly hair. Okay, now I did a whole video a while back titled White Light Wool. Yeah, the woolly hair. Okay? In other words, the ancient Egyptians were true Negroes of the same type as all native-born Africans. Okay? All native-born Africans. And I don't even like using the word Negro, man. All right? Because we're not even black. Okay? We're not, our race is not predicated on a color, man. You know? But that's neither here nor there. That's another video for another day. But that being so, we can see how their blood mixed for several centuries with that of the Romans and Greeks. So that's how you know that's what they look like, okay? And, you know, the true Negroes are the same type as all native-born Africans. Okay, Negroes and Egyptians are not the same. Okay, let's get that in this book. This is the Zondervan Bible Dictionary. This is the Zondervan Bible Dictionary. And like I said, the reason they try to cover up why the Egyptians look the way they look is because they're trying to cover up something else. Something that we are. Me being a so-called black man in America. Right? Now check this out. He's also going to say that the Negroes and the Egyptians are not the same, right? Now this is Ham. This is Ham, the youngest son of Noah, the progenitor of the dark races. Not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. So he's saying Ham is the progenitor of the dark races, but he is not the progenitor of the Negroes. Why is that? Because we are of Jacob. Okay, we come from Shem. Believe it or not. Okay, and that's why I even did this video. Because as I prove who the Egyptians are, you then know who the Israelites are as well. All right, and let's show that there is a difference between the Negroes and the Egyptians. The quote-unquote Negroes. It's Exodus 11:7. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, that ye may know how that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. So the Most High put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. There's a difference between the Negro and the Egyptian. Do you understand? And that's why they was knocking nose off. They didn't want to see that Negro nose, man. And they had the woolly hair, which is a so-called black characteristic. All right, so we moving on. And what he say? Let's go back. That being so, we can see how their blood mixed for several centuries with that Romans and Greeks. Okay, Romans and Greeks. Yes, you look up Romans and Egyptians right here on Google. It says, in 30 BC, Romans took control. The Romans ruled over 600 years until 640 AD. In 332 BC, Alexander the Great swept down from Greece, conquering much of the Middle East, all the way to India. Along the way, he conquered Egypt. So through all these exploits of the Romans, so-called, okay, the Idumeans really, they took over Egypt, and they were ruling over there for 600 years. So you could imagine that for that 600-year period, they were intermingling with the Egyptians. I'll put it like that. That's the nice way of putting it. Okay. What is this? That's where you get the term mulatto, like this a rapper mulatto. right? A person of mixed white and black ancestry, especially a person with one white and one black parent. Okay? Now, remember, it says the Romans took control of Egypt. They ruled over. Remember, this guy in his writings, he said for several centuries the Romans and Greeks mixed. Okay? Now look, these are North Africans from Morocco. All right, this is a North African. Salah Hadin Ben Chiki. This is a North African, right? Now these are Americans. This is Drake, who is mixed. This is a Dominican from the Dominican Republic, and this is somebody from the U.S. Now, if you see this, there's very little to no difference. There's very little to no difference. But you know who this guy, we know this guy's particularly, what does he have? He has this type of lineage. He's mixed. Okay? But we'll do a video on the Americas on another date. Let's continue on reading. Now you got this guy, Jacques Joseph Champollion Fagake. Now this guy, he was a scoffer. He was a denier. He was somebody that didn't believe that the Egyptians were so-called black. But I tell you what, while he wasn't believing that the Egyptians were so-called black, he does basically let you know that, like I told you earlier, up until recently in the 19th century, the general consensus to everybody that was a historian was that the ancient Egyptians were black people, so-called black. Okay, let's show that. This is his book from his memoir. The opinion that the ancient population of Egypt belonged to the Negro African race is an error long accepted as the truth since the Renaissance. All right, so since the Renaissance, people believe that the Egypt belonged to an African race, a Negro African race. So that's just what I wanted to show you. But he didn't believe it, which he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. But he let you know that since the Renaissance, people believe that. Because it's the damn truth, man. Now, remember, Herodotus was quoted earlier, right? This guy quoted Herodotus. Well, we're going to get what Herodotus said. All right? And I got my own books, too. I got some books from this guy. But I got my own books towards the end. All right? But, let's go to what Herodotus said. And who is Herodotus? Herodotus is, they call him the father of history. All right, that's one of his titles. All right, he is most well known for his historical accounts. They say he's arguably the first historian ever, which I do not agree with. First of all, the Bible documents history in of itself. You can read about King Artaxerxes. You can read about Cleopatra. You can read about King Cyrus. You can read about Nebuchadnezzar. These are all real people. So how the hell could he be the first historian? But I digress. Now this is called the Histories of Herodotus. Now I mentioned the writings of Herodotus in probably my most famous video, which was An Old Name of Africa, and by the which where this land on his map was actually just known as Libya. Okay, that's like literally probably my most well-known video. But let's go to his writings, right? In this book. Book 2, section 22. Right? Let's go down to here. Thirdly, it is certain that the natives of the country are black with the heat, that the kites and the swallows remain there the whole year, and that the cranes, when they fly from the rigors of Scythian winter, flock thither to pass the cold season. So he says the natives of the country are black with the heat. Now, what scripture does this remind you of? Black with the heat. Job 30:30. My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with the heat. Okay, but we're going to get some more, because someone can say, oh no, he's just talking about how they got darker with the sun. We're going to get some more of his writings. All right. Book 2, section 57. Down here. He says, lastly, by calling the dove black, the Dodonians indicated that the woman was an Egyptian. Okay. The woman was an Egyptian. Black. Synonymous with Egyptian. Okay. As a matter of fact, I believe kemet literally translates to black land. Okay, Now they try to claim it's because all the soil was black for the Nile and all that other, whatever, man. And once again, who was mistaken for an Egyptian? You know who was mistaken for an Egyptian? The Apostle Paul. Okay? Acts 21:38. Art not thou, excuse me, I'm going to get 37. Acts 21:37. And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, May I speak unto thee? Who said, Canst thou speak Greek? Now look, art not thou that Egyptian, which before these days made us an uproar and led us out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers. So he mistakes Paul for an Egyptian. Watch Paul's response. But Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city, and I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. So Paul was mistaken for an Egyptian. Okay? I wonder why. I wonder why that is so. But let's keep going. All right, section 104 of Herodotus History's Book 2. Check this out. If we're still people, we don't know. Well, look. There can be no doubt that the Colloquians are an Egyptian race. So he says there can be no doubt that the Colloquians are an Egyptian race. All right. Now check this out. Reading down. I found that the Colloquians had a more distinct recollection of the Egyptians than the Egyptians had of them. Still, the Egyptians said that they believed the Colloquians to be descended from the army of Sesostris. All right, Sesostris, for those that don't know, Sesostris, Sesostris was a legendary king of ancient Egypt, okay, according to Herodotus, who led a military expedition into the parts of Europe. So this king had some pull all the way in Europe. All right. Now he's about to give you the description of the Colloquians, who are an Egyptian race. All right. My own conjectures were founded first on the fact that they are black-skinned and have woolly hair. All right. Black-skinned with woolly hair. Okay, which certainly amounts to but little, since several other nations are so too. Okay, so the Egyptians look just like those other African nations. All right, and the Colloquians, which he said are an Egyptian race, were black-skinned with woolly hair. But further and more especially on the circumstance that the Colloquians, the Egyptians, and the Ethiopians are the only nations who have practiced circumcision from the earliest times. And that is true. The Egyptians did practice circumcision. Okay. Egyptians practiced circumcision. Male circumcision is the oldest known human surgical procedure, with historical records and archaeological evidence dating the practice back to the ancient Egyptians in 23rd century BCE. All right. And this is, again, remember, he mentioned Sesostris, which was a king of Egypt, a legendary king of Egypt. Now, when you look up Sesostris, what do you know? They knocked the nigga's nose off, man. Why? Because they don't want you to know that who the Egyptians really look like, man. Okay? They always try to leave it up to speculation. All right, oh, well, we don't really know, and you look at these artworks. Listen, they have so much artwork of the ancient Egyptians that they don't put out, man. All right, because again, if you know who Egypt is, then in proxy you know who Israel is. All right. Now let's go to Aristotle, the Greek philosopher. This is Aristotle, the Greek philosopher. All right, in the classical period of ancient Greece, born in 364 BC. This is what he had to say in his book. Physiognomics. I probably said it wrong. He says those who are excessively black are cowardly. This applies to the Egyptians and Ethiopians. All right. So the Egyptians and the Ethiopians were seen as cowardly to him. He says those who are excessively black. It makes me think of the archetype of a video I did a long time ago called the black buffoon, which is what? They always try to paint the so-called black man in Hollywood films as this sort of coward. All right, like you have Will Smith's character on Bad Boys, as well as Men in Black. Kevin Hart, he always plays the coward. Chris Tucker, he plays the coward in Rush Hour. Finn, he plays the coward in Star Wars, and there are many others. I call it the black buffoon. I did this video about it damn near a year ago. So when he says those who are excessively black or cowardly, that's a whole trope that they have. They even did it with Jar Jar Binks, which was a sneak diss to the so-called black man in their way that they portray us as damn cowardly. All right, now let's go. What is his legacy? He was the first black actor to receive top billing in movies and one of the first millionaire black actors. He spawned imitators, most notably Willie Best, Sleep and Eat, and Maiden Moreland. The scared, wide-eyed manservant of Charlie Chan. All right, the scared, wide-eyed, yeah. Scared, wide-eyed. All got their eyes bugged out of their damn brains, man. All right. He will always be remembered as the lazy, barely literate, self-demeaning white man's black. A caricature. You know. And again, what did Jar Jar play? He played the same person. The Rossifying idiot who was scared of every damn thing. Okay? Look, the coon caricature. Lazy, bewildered, stammering, shuffling, and good for little except buffoonery. I did that, like I said, the black buffoon. But let's keep going, man. I cannot pronounce this dude's name. Aeschylus, the father of tragedy. All right, see what he has to say about these Egyptians. He wrote a book called The Suppliant Maidens. Okay, and he's talking about the Egyptians, and he says, "I see black in limb." So he sees black in limbs. Their clothes white linen. Mad is the race Egyptian. Cursed. Okay. So the Egyptians had black limbs according to him. Then he goes down even further in 740. He says, mad is the race Egyptian. Cursed in war. Unsated. I speak what you know. Dark ships they have and strongly built. They sailed and so succeed in anger with an army large and dark. All right, now another translation for this word dark is actually black. I believe in this dude's video, his version of the book translation, his version was black. Okay, but this version I have of this book, it tells you that they were army of large and dark. All right, and you know, when they get the term tall, dark, and handsome, they're talking about us, believe it or not. All right, large and dark, like Dave Chappelle. Darkness, everybody, darkness. All right, talking about they were a dark shade of brown. Okay, but we're gonna keep reading. We're gonna keep moving on. Achilles Tatius. All right, he was another guy, Greek author. See what he had to say in his book number 3 of Achilles Tatius. He hired an Egyptian boat. We hired an Egyptian boat. Right? Now when we go down, the herdsman cried the skipper and tried to put the boat about and sail back. But already the place was full of terrifying savage men. All tall, dark colored, yet not absolutely black, like an Indian, but more like a bastard Ethiopian. So he calls the Indians black. Now you would ask the question, why would he call an Indian black? They don't look like the Indians we see today. And when he says Indian, he's talking about somebody from India. All right, he's not talking about the North American Indian, so-called. Okay, but we'll get on that in a minute. But he said they are all tall, dark colored. Yeah, large and dark. But tall, dark colored, yet not absolutely black like an Indian. Now, why would he say that an Indian is black? Well, let's see. Let's see the word Indian. Let's go to etymology. Etymology means origin of word. Indian. Inhabitant of India or South Asia. So an Indian at one point in time was somebody you would call somebody from India, but also people from South Asia in general, pertaining to India. Then later it got applied to the aboriginal native inhabitants of the Americas. All right. Then you go down here. It says of inhabitants of the Philippines and indigenous peoples of Australia. All right. Now this term India, now this term Indian is important because there's something they called the Indians that they also called the so-called black people. All right. Which is the N-word. Now, shout out to Kurameo Ahau. Okay. Because he brought this book out a while back. And I'm quoting it. I got the book here. Right? This is The Facts on the Encyclopedia of Word and Phrase Origins. All right, by Robert Hendrickson. Right? It reads, give me a second. I got to turn this damn heater off. It's hot. Sorry about that. I'm back. But it says the N word. I can't say the word because of YouTube. But I'm gonna say Negro, right? Negro has also been an offensive. Well, first I'll read it like this: Negro, N word, when used by a white person to describe a black or African American person. This is probably the most offensive, hateful, hurtful term in the language today. All right, like Negro, the word derives ultimately from the Latin niger, which means black. Okay, so the N word, it's applied to black people, but who else was it applied to? Let's go down. Negro has also been an offensive, derogatory term applied to Indians, as well as blacks up until recent times. So they called Indians the N word too, and we already know the N word means black. Niger, black, Latin. Okay, so you would ask the question as to why. Now, this is talking about North American Indians, but you would ask the question as to why. Well, let's go back. He said not absolutely black like an Indian, but more like a bastard. So that lets you know that the Indians at one point in time in South Asia and in India were way darker than they are today. Okay? And look, these are some people that you will see in India today. These are people that are so-called Indians. Okay? Now you understand why they called the North American Indians so-called, why they called them the N-word as well, and also why they called them Indians. Okay? Because they have similar complexion. Okay? They have this complexion with the non-woolly hair, like a straight type of hair. Thick type of hair, right? Straight, thick type of hair. All right? Just like these people do in this picture. But look at their complexion, right? Not absolutely black like an Indian, but more like a bastard Ethiopian. Look, black people in India, they try to act like it's been 400 years and the Bantu came over there, which, by the way, the Bantu are Israelites. The vast majority of them are, yes. All right, now look, these are India's forgotten African tribe, so-called. Now look at these people. All right, now the Indians of America, the North American Indian, were known as the copper-colored race. All right, I got this book on me. It's a book you can pick up. The book is titled Black People Are Indigenous to the Americas by Kimberly R. Norton. I got the book in my hand. All right, you can go pick that book up. It cost me like $10 on Amazon. I don't know how much it'll be now, but, it is what it is. I might do a PDF at some point. I don't know. But it's called The Copper-Colored Races. Why aren't black Indians part of Black History Month? Why is it saying that? Because look at these people. Look at these copper-colored so-called Indians. Now you understand why they were calling them the N-word as well as the so-called African American. Okay? And this is a video you can look up on YouTube called The Native Cuban Dance, Cuba. Now look at these people. These people are darker than me. All right, these are natives to Cuba. Okay? Now let's get another dictionary. This is an encyclopedia. Let's get a dictionary. Dictionary of the American Regional English, right? It reads, this is dealing with the N word again, by the way. It says used of any other non-white person, especially an American Indian. So especially the N word was used on an American Indian. And you would see as to why, because this guy himself said not absolutely black, like an Indian. Okay? Down here it says, well, what's to prevent you boys getting those prizes if colonists was made Christians of instead of outlawed? Then he says, heathen, Injun, N-words as they be. So he called the Indians, again, the North American Indian, he called them the N-word. Why? Because, hey, their complexion was different back then, believe it or not. Now, coming back to this word Indian, it was also applied to the Philippines and indigenous peoples. Why was it applied to the Philippines? Well, let's go. Again, let's see what the aboriginal Filipinos look like. Right? All right, it says those N-words equals Filipinos. All right, now look this up. It's some people known as the Ada people. The Ada people are a Filipino indigenous people. Okay, the Ada, A-E-T-A. What does indigenous mean? Indigenous means native, non-exotic, native. What does native mean? Original, an original inhabitant. Okay, so the Filipinos were called the N-word. Well, let's see what these Ada people look like. These are the Ada people. All right, Africans native of Asia. See, they always have to go back and put the word African. Why is that? Because they want you to believe that all black people are so-called Africans. But you'll come to find out that so-called black people were all over the world and not just in Africa. All right? All right, now I'm going to get some of my comments. We all come from Africa, brother. Please. Just stop. That's another video for itself. But the Ada people, all right? These are the Ada people. Now you would understand why they were called the N-word. All right. Now you understand why the Indians were called the N-word. Now you understand why even in this thing it says the inhabitants of the Philippines were called Indians. But let's go back to what he said in his writings. Yet not tall, dark color, yet not absolutely black like an Indian, but more like a bastard Ethiopian. What did he mean by a bastard Ethiopian? Well, let's go. Now you go to the Bible, you have somebody known as Cush. Let's go to Genesis 10:6. It says, and the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan. Now Cush refers to a land south of Israel and is translated as Ethiopia. So the land of Cush is Ethiopia. Now this word Cush literally means black. Look, Cush, black. It also means burnt face. Okay? Meaning dark skin. Cush, black. A son, probably the eldest of Ham and the father of Nimrod. So he says black, not absolutely black like an Indian, but more like a bastard Ethiopian. Well, we know that an Ethiopian means black. So when he says a bastard Ethiopian, he's really talking about a hybrid. All right, a mixed breed, so-called. And let me touch on this too while I'm at it. So the father of Nimrod, Cush. Cush was a black, so-called black man. Okay, he was a so-called black African. He was an Ethiopian. Okay, yet when you type in Nimrod, these who pop up. This dude, some tacking the power of juju looking Caucasian man. You know, you type in Nimrod, this who pop up. But we know Nimrod was black. Hell, the word Cush means black, man. So these are, again, fake images like usual. All right, the real Nimrod would have looked something like this. All right, and Cush was like the first tyrant of the world, so to speak. Or I should say of the world after the flood. Let me put that out there. But yeah, I'll do a video on Cush, Nimrod, and them in a whole another video. But let's keep going. By the way, going back to Cush, right? The term Bacchus, all right? Bacchus, which is in Greece. There's a so-called fake pagan god known as Bacchus, right? The term Bacchus literally comes back to the son of Cush, meaning who? Nimrod. All right, because we know Nimrod is what? The son of Cush. Okay? Now, Bacchus comes back to the son of Cush. They believe the name Bacchus to be derived from the Hebrew Burnish of the or son of Cush, and Cush was the father of biblical Nimrod. This belief was reinforced by several correspondents. All right, so Bacchus means son of Cush. All right, I'll do a whole nother video on that, which lets you know that the original Bacchus had to have looked somewhere like our boy Nimrod. All right, not the one you see today. All right, the original Bacchus had to have been a dark-skinned person. And by the way, I'll do another video on this, but by the way, the original inhabitants of Greece were so-called black as well. Okay? That's a lot of things. A lot of people try to act like Japheth is the so-called white man because of the region of Europe. Understand something. The first I mentioned this in my Real Black Vikings video. The first inhabitants of Europe were so-called black. They know that. Look it up. All you got to do is Google up where the first Europeans black. Watch what pops up. But nonetheless, so Cush means black. Yeah, these are what the Ethiopians look like. The original Ethiopians. But you also have what this guy called the bastard. Where was he at? This guy called the bastard Ethiopians. All right, why? Because you have certain Ethiopians that look like this. Because they have intermixed with the so-called Indians that have been over there, as well as other nations. I'll just put it like that. All right, someone even asked the question on Quora, are Ethiopians half white? I wouldn't say they're half white, but they're intermixed. That's another video for another day, but let's keep going to another book. This is a soldier. His name was Ammianus Marcellinus, 330 AD, Rome. This is his book, History. All right, Ammianus Marcellinus. All right, you go down to here. This is the book, page 316. He says, the inhabitants of Egypt are generally swarthy and dark complexioned. So he just tells you that the inhabitants of Egypt are generally swarthy and dark complexioned. Okay, what does generally mean? In most cases. So in most cases, the Egyptians are swarthy and dark complexion. Now, what does this word swarthy mean? This word swarthy, dark color, especially of skin. Swarthy, schwarz, see swarthy, a black person. Black. All right. You see that? So let's go to Lucian. Lucian wrote a book as well. I believe he was in the 2nd century. All right, Lucian was born 125 AD. Okay, he wrote a book, The Works of Lucian of Samosata. Let's see what he had to say. As for this fellow, to say nothing of his dark skin and protruding lips and spindle shanks. All right, now this, but for those that don't know, he's talking about someone who's Egyptian born. You see it right here? Let me highlight it. Egyptian born. All right, dark skin and protruding lips. Dark skin and protruding lips. Okay, they even have a stereotype, a slur, where they call it inward lips. The stereotype that black people have large lips. He says dark skin and protruding lips. Okay? And spindle shanks. What does spindle shanks mean? Spindle shanks means a long, slender legs. That's what spindle shanks mean. Long, slender legs. Now you look at the Nilotic people, which, by the way, the ancient Egyptians, the descendants of the ancient Egyptians are the Nilotic people, which are known as one of the tallest peoples in the world. The Nilotic people, and as the word states, Nilotic comes from the word Nile. Okay? Now the Nilotic people is indigenous to the Nile Valley, who speak Nilotic languages. South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania. Okay? Now look at this. Males have an average of 6 feet 4 inches, while women on average are 6 foot. These people have slim but strong bodies, and their heads are more elongated in the case than typical African blacks. All right. Okay, so they have slim but strong bodies. Yeah, in other words, they have spindle shanks, long, slender legs. Now you look at this. Look at this so-called African black basketball player. I don't know him, but I'm sure brothers know in the comments. Look at his long, slender legs. Look at these spindle shanks, man. Okay. I can name a couple, not a lot of people off the top of my dome. You got the Dinka, the Nuer, the Massey. Okay. All right. But they were known for they are known for their very tall stature. You know, in the scriptures, in the Bible, it lets you know the Egyptians were very tall. Let's get that account. 1 Chronicles 11 and 22. It reads, Benaiah. Actually, I'm going to go down to 23. All right, 1 Chronicles 11 and 23. And he slew an Egyptian, a man of great stature, 5 cubits high. Now, 5 cubits high, what does that mean? 5 cubits translate to 7'5". He was tall. He was very tall. Look at this Dinka tribe. He was very tall. 7'5". All right. He slew somebody that was 7'5", 5 cubits high, and the Egyptian's hand was a spear like a weaver's beam, and he went down to him with the staff and plucked the spear out of the Egyptian's hand and slew him with his own spear. So he killed him with his own weapon, man. You know. All right, but Nia wasn't playing. Now, that's all the things I got from the guy who wrote who I got these books from, and then I added my 2 cents. Now I'm gonna get you the books that I had myself that you brothers can look up, and I'll try to link these videos or these books in the description, all right? Because I got them myself. And these are, let me go back. This is a guy by the name of Gerald Massey. All right, Gerald Massey was an English poet and a writer on spiritualism in ancient Egypt. Now, this was in the time of 1828 is when he was born, so in the 1800s. Okay? Let's see what he had to say about the Egyptians. And we're going to touch on some things. Look at this verse right here. It says, page 14, the book of the beginnings. The best of this book, by the way, is titled The Book of the Beginnings. All right? Now, page 14, second paragraph. In Egypt, this oldest form of the Great Mother had been reduced from the status of a deity to that of a demon, and her idols to that of dolls. 2 painted wooden dolls used as children's toys are copied by Wilkinson. One of these reproduces the black Negroid Isis. So he calls Isis a Negroid. All right. So I just wanted to touch on that, man. You know, A Book of the Beginnings is a good book. I tell you brothers all the time in this video. I tell you all the time on my channel. I tell you what, the best book are old books, man. All right, you can get that book, The Book of Beginnings. You can get Ancient and Modern Britons. You can get Origins of the Anglo-Saxon Race. Symbolisms and Heraldry. These are just books that come to mind off top. All right, but he said that Isis was a goddess of black Negroid Isis, the oldest form. So the oldest form of Isis was a black Negroid. That's what Gerald Massey said. Who is Isis? Isis is the ancient goddess of fertility. What is a Negroid? Resembling or akin to the Negroes. You know, so, hey, they got the real Isis somewhere. And the real idol. All right. You know, which stray from idolatry. Stay away from that. But nonetheless, hey, they got it somewhere. All right, now page 17, more on Egypt. He says, the red skin similar to the complexion of the earliest men of the monuments is not an uncommon variety of the Africans. So the red skin is not an uncommon variety of the Africans. Okay? Bonwich asserts that the clear brownish red is a complexion frequently found among the Ashantis, although deep black is the prevailing color. So you have reddish brown people of the Ashantis. By the way, the Ashantis, a lot of the people of the Ashanti tribe are Israelites as well. But what is this red color he speaks of, right? Well, first, let me prove that the Ashanti are Israelites. Okay, this is an Ashanti. In the Ashanti kingdom, he's wearing a breastplate. All right, the breastplates you can read about in Exodus 28 and 4. All right, and as well as the Ashanti, you can read about Ashan in the Bible. Ashan in Joshua 19 and 7 and 2 Chronicles 6 and 59. All right, Ashan. It's known as Ashan. You get the term Ashanti. All right, belonging to Judah. All right, he had on the breastplate like I told you earlier. The breastplate stated in Exodus 28 and 15. And thou shalt make the breastplate of judgment with cunning work after the ephod. Thou shalt make it of gold or blue, and of purple, and of scarlet, and fine linen shalt thou make it. All right. So he has on that breastplate. Like I told you, the Ashanti are Israelites. Now going back to where he said the reddish brown, as akin to the instead of the prevailing black. All right. What did he mean by that? Well, the so-called black people have a term that we use that is called red bone. All right. I fall into this category as well. But I'd say this all the time. My grandfather used to call me red. All right. Red bone. Yes, we're all, like I said, we're not black. We're different shades of brown. From reddish brown to darker brown. Okay. To dark brown. But we are different shades of brown. Okay. Red bones. All right. Blackberries and red bones. Red bones. You see that? They have that reddish tinge, but they are still a part of the same race, and they try to tell you that damn lie that we all come that light skinned people come from admixture between white DNA. That is not true. All right, that is not true, but that's what they try to run with. We've always been different shades of brown. I touch on this more in the video I did on the color of Adam. All right, the color of Adam. I touch on the term ruddy. All right, and what it's really going into. All right, so go watch that for that. But yeah, Romans and Egyptians. We went over this. All right, the Romans were ruling over Egypt for over 600 years, so they admixed a lot. Now you go to 1 Maccabees 10 and 57. You can see that Cleopatra was one of those hybrids, documented. All right, 1 Maccabees 10 and 57. You can find this in the Apocrypha, which was originally part of the King James Bible. So Ptolemy went out of Egypt with his daughter Cleopatra, and they came onto Ptolemais in the 162nd year. Yes, Cleopatra her father was a so-called white man. Her father was an Idumean, an Edomite. Okay, 1 Maccabees 10 and 58. Where King Alexander meeting him, he gave unto him his daughter Cleopatra, and celebrated her marriage at Ptolemais with great glory, as the manner of kings is. Okay, and Cleopatra was a hybrid. Okay, that's on document. Okay, and then that brings me to the Americas, right? Now you have a lot of Americas that look a certain way, and you wonder, well, where are the Indians you mentioned? Well, let me say this: if Rome took over Egypt for 600 years and the Egyptians looked drastically different, why would the case not be the same for the America, considering America was taken over? America was occupied for 416 years. All right. And the white percent of the population is 75.8%, according to this census. 75.8% identify as white. You don't think that the so-called white people are admixed with certain nations, right? You go on here, it says the American Indian makes up 1.3%. All right, do you really believe that? Where did all the so-called Indians go? That's another video for another day. And then, you know who else took over Egypt? The so-called Arab, which is who you see over there today. All right, memorize this name. Historical events, 640 A.D. was the Muslim conquest of Byzantine Egypt. In 640 A.D., that's where you get the Arabs. That's where they entered the scene to Egypt. And again, I told you the term Arab means mixed. All right? I'll do videos on the Arabs, the Indians, the Native Americans. I'll do videos on them at some point, you know. It takes a while to get thorough. Okay? But I had some more on that, but we'll just fast forward. We'll just fast forward. More on Gerald Massey's A Book of the Beginnings. I want to touch on this too before I get up out of here. I got a couple more things real quick. This is the Book of the Beginnings. Let's go down to here. Page 18. The most reasonable view on the evolutionary theory and those who do not accept, that have not yet begun to think for lack of a starting point, is that the black race is the most ancient and that Africa is the primordial home. It is true that the so-called black race is the most ancient. Okay? Noah was black. His 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, were so-called black as well. Okay? Different, but they produce different races. Okay, but that's another thing in itself too. But it is not necessary to show that the first colonizers of India were Negroes. You see that? Now again. Let's go back. Let's go back real quick. He said the first Indians were Negroes. Apply to Indians. The N-word. Indian. All right? The N-word was especially applied to the American Indian. Indians in general, so-called. Now he said it is certain that he says, it is not necessary to show that the first colonizers of India were Negroes. You see what he said? The first colonizers of India were Negroes. Hello? But it is certain that the black Buddha of India was imaged in the Negroid type. Let's get that black Buddha. Look at this black Buddha. Look at the nose. Look at the lips. Look at the hair. This is the Buddha they show you. This is the black Buddha. All right. And this is what he was talking about. And there are many other black Buddha statues that they don't show you. Okay? Believe that. All right? The Negroid type. And the black Negro god, whether called Buddha or Soot, Nasi. And I believe soot means black. Okay? Because when you empty a chimney, you have the term soot. Have a datum. They carry in their color the proof of their origin. Okay? The people who first fashioned and worshiped the divine image in the Negroid mode of humanity must, according to all knowledge of human nature, must have been Negroes themselves. See that? In other words, they called the so-called Indian the N-word. India. All right. For the blackness is not merely mystical. The features and the hair of Buddha belong to the black race. And Nasi is the Negro name. Nasi is the Negro name. The genetrics represented as the Da Motamami. Now check this out. The Diana of Ephesus is found as a black figure. The features are as Negroid as were those of the black Isis in Egypt. So he tells you that the so-called goddess Diana of Ephesus was a black figure that was almost identical to the black Isis of Egypt. Okay? That's why when you look at the Amazons in DC, Wonder Woman, you have somebody that's part of the Amazons known as Anubia. Why did they throw her in there? This because they were in the know. And this is the picture of Diana of Ephesus. And this is the black figure of Diana of Ephesus. As you can see. Okay. So now we know what the Egyptians look like. Well, guess what? Guess what? Our brother Joseph was mistaken for an Egyptian. Genesis 42:8. King James Version. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew not him. All right. And let's go here. ESV. And Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. Why is that? They thought Joseph was just an Egyptian. Why is that? They had the same complexion. Okay? They had the same complexion. Okay? Genesis chapter 45. All right? Then, I'm going to start at verse 1. Genesis 45:1. Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him, and he cried, cause every man to go out from me, and there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard. All right, now look at this. And Joseph said unto his brethren, come near to me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. So they just thought that Joseph was an Egyptian, but in fact, Joseph was actually part of the 12 tribes of Israel. So what does that tell you that Joseph was? See, they try to act like, and they tell you this too, this themselves, the so-called rabbis try to tell you, oh, you know, the original, we weren't originally white, we looked Middle Eastern, trying to apply as if they were look like the so-called Arabs you see today, but in actuality, no. This is who we really look like. All right, that's why Moses was able to blend in with the Egyptians as well. Exodus 2:10. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And he called his name Moses, and she said, because I drew him out of the water. So Pharaoh's daughter raised up Moses. Okay, Moses was able to fit in. Moses couldn't have looked like that white baby in order to fit in as an Egyptian, man. All right. You know, I had more slides, but that was going to go into the intermixture and stuff, but I'll do a whole nother video on that. But that's it on that, man. Yes, the Egyptians were black, which means by proxy, so were the ancient Israelites. And with that, I say peace to the 12. I'm going to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father, the Most High Yahawah, in the name of His only begotten Son, yahawashi, man, who is commonly known as Jesus Christ, but that's not His real name. His real name is Yahawashi Hamashiach. And with that, I say Shalom, which means peace to you people that have been listening and learning, to you brothers doing this work in truth and sincerity, and to you elders that's been doing this thing before me, man. All right, we got to keep pushing. We got to keep revealing, man. All right, till kingdom come. Okay, like I believe it tells you in Ecclesiasticus, was it chapter 8? It might be 4:8, but what he says, strive to the truth unto death, and the Lord shall fight for thee. And we got to strive for the truth, man. All right, and with that, I'm gone. Shalom. Peace.